right, so let's get into some topics here. Last week, I discussed the announced list from Sight and Sound, the top 100 films of all time. Went into some detail about what won, what was listed, and my thoughts on the list. Again, I don't mind the list. I thought it was interesting, and I won't rehash that. But I want to go and do something here that's been going on Twitter and Facebook that a lot of people are doing, and that is basically, if I was asked to compile a list for the Sight and Sound top 100, what would I choose? So I'm going to go through 10 films that I think deserved to be on that list, that I think if I were given the chance that I would put on the list. These aren't necessarily my all-time favorite movies. I think they're excellent movies, but I think these are the ones that are most deserving. So here I go right now. The first one I want to point out is Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away. Now, it's already on the list. I think it's number 76 on the Sight and Sound 100. When it comes to animated movies, Spirited Away is the watermark. It is the bar that you have to reach in order to become the best. Spirited Away is not only a beautiful looking film, but it is also a film literally for everybody, if they were to give it a chance. It is an epic movie with some good action in it. It is a deep and thoughtful movie for people who want things to think about and to feel. It is also utterly gorgeous. It is imaginative. When it comes to just pure imagination and the quality of the animation itself, I think nothing beats Spirited Away, and nothing has in the past 20 years since it's been released. If there should be more animated movies, I think, on this list, and I think that's like a oversight to the critics when it comes to the Sight and Sound 100. Spirited Away is definitely one that deserves to be considered not only one of the best animated movies of all time, but one of the best movies of all time. And compare it to either hand-drawn or computer animated, nothing beats this movie. It is a fantastic movie. The next movie that I would put in there is Her, the Spike Jonze movie from 2013, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Her does so many things right. The conceit of Her is that a man falls in love with an AI. When you hear a man falling in love with a computer or an AI, you would think of it as like a comedy, about a desperately lonely loser who is ripe for ribbing, or just a lurid sex comedy where a guy sticks his penis into a 3x5 floppy disk drive, or something stupid like that. But no, it's actually a heartfelt and sensitive portrayal of finding love in an unexpected place. And the movie does a fantastic job, not only making you empathize with the main character, but also to be non-judgmental about what is going on with this character and the emotions he's feeling, and why maybe that isn't so crazy after all in that aspect. And if it did just that, okay, I mean, that's good. It did its intended purpose. But then Her goes another step and goes into the questions about what AI and computers have to do with our life and the effects it will have on our life and things like that. And then it goes another step further with other issues and other questions it's asking that I won't spoil if you haven't seen Her. Her is a rare film that not only does its intended purpose correctly, and an intended purpose that is very hard to do, but it goes several steps above that and nails those on top. Just in the audacity, not only in just tackling that kind of not subject matter, but that kind of story with a sensitivity and realism, not realism, a sensitivity and warmth that isn't something that was teasing the character, but also to delve into more of the deeper aspects of not only love but computers. It is a special movie that I full-heartedly recommend to anybody who hasn't seen it. It is a lovely film. It is fantastic. I adore her for not only portraying the character so sensitively, but also taking the concept and going several steps above what most films would and succeeding. Her right there, I think, is probably one of the best written movies ever made. Fargo is the next one, the 1996 crime caper not crime caper, but the 1996 dark comedy starring Frances McDormand, William H. Macy, and Steve Buscemi, directed by the Coens. Fargo has always been a favorite of mine. I've loved Fargo for a long time. One of the interesting things that I remember watching Fargo is that they made it apparent in the beginning of the movie that this movie is based on a true story. And when you watch it, the movie is darkly comic in a, I would say, not a strange way, but in a way that stretches credulity. But the movie is deftly done so well that you still believe that, wow, this really happened. That's crazy. Oh my God. That's so crazy that it happened that way. Until you realize later on when you watch the movie that, no, the directors flat out lied. It's not based on a true story at all. And that's the brilliance of Fargo to a certain extent, where the movie straight up lies to you. And even though it's lying to you, you believe the lie. And then when it's told to you that you were lied to, it doesn't matter because there's still a way that you can believe it to a certain extent. The blend of dark comedy and homespun Minnesotan charm is a blend that only I think the Coens could actually make work very well. I mean, Fargo is both Hollywood and independent. To a certain extent. It's Hollywood in the way that a pregnant cop is taking down bad guys, and it's independent because it's done in that Minnesotan drawl and with a fairly dark plot line in there as well. Fargo defies convention and uses it in really interesting twists and turns that even when you know what's happening, it's still not only very entertaining, but it also very thought-provoking. Fargo will always be a favorite of mine, and I know for a lot of people it's a favorite of theirs too, but Fargo, I think, should have also been on the top 100. What was on the top 100 was Mulholland Drive. Mulholland Drive's interesting. I've seen this film 7 or 8 times, and I gotta tell you, I still don't really know what the movie's about. I have theories. I have ideas as to what it might be about, but that's what's interesting about David Lynch. Okay, he's one of the few directors where you're not sure what the hell is going on, but because it's so beautiful to watch, and it's so confusing, that it's also fascinating to sit through. It's not fair to call Mulholland Drive a mood piece, because you don't even know what the mood is supposed to be in this movie. But even then, it is one of these films that obfuscation is really the only thing in the film that I think is a constant. And usually that frustrates people. Because if you feel like you're not getting the whole story and you're missing something or you're being lied to or whatever, it generally is a frustrating thing to deal with, but to be given like puzzles after puzzles in this movie, but with how well it's shot and beautifully it's done, you don't mind that the movie is fucking with your head. And I go back to it often. Again, I've seen it like 7 or 8 times. And I still am amazed by how it's shot and what they do and what Lynch does in the movie. I thoroughly enjoy Mulholland Drive. And Even though I will admit to this day, I'm still not sure what it's about, but I think I will probably spend most of my life trying to figure it out and have no problem doing it. Godfather Part 2 is my next one. Godfather Part 1 is in the list. Godfather Part 2 got kicked from the 2022 list. Godfather 1 is a stone cold classic, and it deserves its praise for its great performances, its perfectly flowing plot, and its really quotable dialogue that really has changed mafia movies ever since it was made. But Godfather Part 2 does all that and one more. And it weaves two conflicting stories that folds into itself to make one of the best movies about the father-son dynamic. And this is a very tough thing to do. There are ensemble movies, okay, that people make movies with like 10, 15, 20 different characters. Well, that might be too much, but with a lot of characters. And something falls by the wayside. Something doesn't work and stuff like that. Godfather Part 2 weaves both stories, one about Vito and one about Michael, so well that these are, if you were to make these two stories into movies themselves, they would be great movies. Okay? But because they're woven so well into one, it makes it absolutely outstanding. And as much as I do love the first Godfather, the second one is really one of the best films ever made. It does one thing that most ensemble movies or most films try to do and often doesn't succeed in doing, and that is weave two really good stories into one cohesive package, and nothing has done it better than The Godfather Part 2. Before Sunset is my next one. This is my favorite romance movie of all time. Would I recommend seeing the first film before sunrise? Yes. Do you need to? No. I think to get the ultimate payoff of Before Sunset, you would have to watch Before Sunrise. And Before Sunrise is a very good movie. But Before Sunset deals with the topic of missed opportunities and second chances in the way that I don't think I'll ever see a movie do. And it does it in not only in like a sensitivity, but in a realism and in an adult realism. A lot of second chance movies and second opportunity movies do it in a sort of campy, kind of wishy-washy, wish upon a star, it's a miracle type of storytelling. It takes a confounding amount of credulity to believe that it happened. And Before Sunset doesn't do that, really. Before Sunset makes you believe that, oh, this is just a chance that it happened. Wow, this is something. That you can still believe it happens, and you can believe what happens in the end, and it's so damn satisfying when it does. It is hard for me to it's not hard for me to recommend Before Sunset, period. Before Sunset is, to me, the best romantic movie of all time. But it is hard for me to recommend it to somebody who hasn't seen Before Sunrise. I would have no problem doing it if you really don't want to watch the other movie, but to get the full effect, you need to see Before Sunrise. But Before Sunset is probably the best sequel to a movie ever made. That is also including Godfather Part 2. Man, I'm going to piss off some people today. But yeah, Before Sunset is my next one. Come and see the 1985 anti-war movie directed by Elem Klimov. Come and See is a movie that is so good and so effective and brilliant as to what it does. I can't recommend anybody watching this movie because it will change you. I saw this movie 5 years ago, and I still have scenes from this movie seared into my brain. It is purely devastating, and it's nightmare-inducing. It's not nightmare-inducing to where you see all sorts of twisted, gory, depraved, and disgusting, degenerate stuff. Like you would say, I don't know, a Serbian film. I'm not talking like that. I'm talking about actual horror. It is I would call it a beautiful but destructive masterpiece. Come and See is the story of a child soldier surviving the Nazi invasion of Belarus. I will tell you that when you're done, it will leave you as a shell of a person when you're done watching this movie. Yeah, I don't know how else to explain it, but it changes you. It comes close to traumatizing you to a certain extent because you're seeing these horrific things go on in this movie, and it's in the eyes of a child. And it's not done in a way that is gratuitous or it's done just to shock you. There is a message in there, and the message is said very clearly. It also adds this pulpability when you realize it's done through the eyes of a child who's losing his innocence as the minutes tick when you're watching this movie. Hell, the actor himself changes physically throughout the film. It is devastating to watch, and as beautiful and as brilliant as Come and See is, it is something that if I tell people it is one of the best war movies ever made, I also say, and you should not see it. It is devastating in its singularity. It is something else to watch. But yeah, Come and See is my next one. Jackie Brown, I think Tarantino's best film. Tarantino, in his filmography, has made films to mirror his love of film. And he shows it marrying his films with great visuals and really good dialogue. And he also gets really good performances from the actors that he uses. But Jackie Brown does something that Tarantino rarely does, and that is show restraint. When Tarantino made Jackie Brown, you can tell that what he had didn't need visual trickery or camera flourishes or all sorts of like crazy types of gore or blood or things like that to enhance the film. He knew he had a great film like right away when he had it with the writer. Well, he was the writer, but with the characters that he wrote in the movie and the actors that he had, he knew he had an outstanding film, and he just let it go. Now he does have some really good visuals in the movie, but the fact that Tarantino wrote, I think this is his best film. Not only he wrote it very well, that he just let the actors do the movie, essentially, just shows exactly how much of a good director he is. Because when he recognizes that he's got something special, that it doesn't need more tinkering or it doesn't need more to enhance what I would say that would enhance the movie itself, he knew right then and there is, oh, okay, just let them play. And that's what he did. He let them play. He let them play with his dialogue, which is Tarantino's best strength. And he let them just do the movie with little embellishment. And it is literally his best film. I like Tarantino when he's bombastic. Jackie Brown is his best. Y Tu Mama Tambien is the next one. This is a film that I think as years go by gets less and less love to a certain extent. And I don't really understand why. Well, I kind of do. Let me just say this. When I first saw this film when I was 19, I just looked at it as a sex drama and that's it. I was like, okay, it's a sex drama. There's some frank dialogue about sex. There is a good amount of nudity. There's some strong sexual content. Okay, it's a sex drama, whatever. Then I saw it again years later when I was older, like when I was like 28, 29. I appreciated the story of the boy, how relatable the boy's relationship was in the movie and its complexity. And then around 35, 36, I watched it again, and then I appreciate the story of the woman in this movie and what she's going through and her crisis that she's going through. I watched it again about a year ago for another podcast, and the political tidbits really grew on me and I started really appreciating. Y Tu Mama Tambien is a film that constantly peels layers. The politics of sex, growing up, maturity, political strife, class strife. It's a film that constantly tells more stories than the more that you watch it. That's the sign of a deeply well thought film. It is Alfonso Cuarón's best. I know he's gone on to make other films, but to me, Y Tu Mamá También is a deep meditation on growing up and the things that happen when you do. And it's still something that moves me every time I watch it, and I get something new out of it. It is an exceptional film that I think more people should give a chance to, and deserves more people to champion in this. Maybe it's the sex that drives people away and the obscene language, but it is an exceptional movie. And the last movie is Showa. Showa is already on the list, but I just want to point out, Showa is too important of a film to be left out. To me, just a matter of importance, Showa should be number one in this. And Showa isn't, and I think the reason why it's not is because Showa is an 8-hour documentary. Like 8 hours. Showa does something that most documentaries about the Holocaust, or about anything really, doesn't reach, but Showa does it in the way. It's really hard to describe. Showa, when people tune into stories about the Holocaust, and they watch stories about World War II, it's often about the bigger picture. What happened to the group? What happened to the Nazis, the Allies, the Axis powers, the Jewish people? The main, they talk more about the conflict. Showa makes it much more personal. Showa is about time. Showa is about a people, a collective trauma. It's all-encompassing. It's worldwide. It's deeply personal. It is a conflicting nature of the devastating effect of the Holocaust. Most films about the Holocaust itself, it concentrates on the horrors, the tragedies, and the drama. But Showa does something different. It's about the details, the mundanity, the inanity of the Holocaust and what happened. And because of what Claude Lanzmann did in this movie, there is more power, drama, and emotion. Listening to a man while he's cutting hair describing what he went through than actually seeing it on screen. I can't explain it better than that, okay? If Claude Lanzmann were to have done an artist interpretation or shot a scene of that scene happening, it would have less power than listening to this man struggle to talk about what he went through in a concentration camp. The movie also talks to people on the other side of the Nazis, specifically of this person who praised the way the train system worked to get Jews into the concentration camps and how disturbing that was to listen to. I mean, there is more power in this movie than I think you would get by just visually representing it. And hearing these people talking about their collective trauma and their complicity has a power to it that I think few movies could ever attain. Showa is not only a great movie, it's an important one, and it deserves to be on that list. And I'm glad it is. Showa, to me, is required viewing that requires your undivided attention, and we live in a society that just doesn't see the reason to devote 8 hours of their life to something that will make you feel bad. But if you really want to understand, I think the collective trauma that happened at that time, I don't think anything would beat Showa in that. So Showa is my 10th movie. My list, as I see it: Spirited Away, Her, Fargo, Mulholland Drive, The Godfather Part 2, Before Sunset, Come and See, Jackie Brown, Y Tu Mamá También, and Showa. Those are the 10 movies that if I had a list to give the Sight and Sound 100, that would be my top 10.